Hello and welcome back to the DayLuna Human Design Podcast with your hosts, Dana and Shayna. Today, we are getting real with an amazing guest that we've had on before, Terri Cole. If you remember from her previous episode, she's all about boundaries. This episode, she's teaching us about high functioning codependency, and it is an eye opener. I can guarantee that as you listen, you're going to be like, oh shit, yep, I do that. And it is maybe creating friction in my life. It's also maybe causing stress to my inner world. And honestly, this episode, she doesn't know much about human design. So we didn't talk a lot about human design, but this episode's basically a masterclass for waiting for the invitation. In general, whether you are a projector or you have a lot of projected channels, it also is a really good mirror and offers a lot of good tools for working through not self in general. You know, if you have frustration or anger, or you're a manifestor, have manifesting energy, and you really need to be informing more in your life, um, there's so many bits of this episode and the wisdom that Terri shares that help you work through not self and come back into your self theme, whatever that might be, based off of your design. So it's interesting, you know, when we're not thinking about a human design lens and we're talking about self growth and self awareness and self accountability and responsibility, that a lot of the key themes apply, regardless of your design, because of the way that we have been manifesting our life around us. So I loved learning this. I'm going to be taking it one step at a time and applying it to my life. And I think that you'll probably feel the same.
Yeah, I absolutely love learning from Terri. She's just so funny, and the way that she delivers things, you feel like you can really receive it. And I feel like a lot of the things that she shares in this episode have literally been the main themes that I've been working on in my last maybe 2 years. So it felt like a really full circle moment to hear her be able to summarize these really complex themes and give actionable and practical steps about how we correct them or how we notice them in our life. So, a little bit about Terri Cole. She is a licensed psychotherapist, global relationship and empowerment expert, author of the Boundary Boss book, which we talked about last time she was on. And for over 25 years, she's worked with a diverse group of clients from stay at home moms to celebrities and Fortune 500 CEOs. She has a gift for making complex psychological concepts actionable and accessible. She inspires over 600,000 people weekly through her public platforms and her popular podcast, The Terri Cole Show. And now she's written a new book, which we dive into in this episode, called Too Much. Too Much is Terri's handbook on how to break down the characteristics of high functioning codependency so that you can get more clarity around what's going on under the surface of your behavior and take steps towards better boundaries, inner peace, and integrity. Okay, so without further ado, let's welcome back our guest for today, Terri Cole. We are so excited to connect with you. We absolutely loved having you on last time to talk about boundaries and your book, The Boundary Boss. And honestly, our community has loved continuing to learn from you. So we're all really excited that you're
Yay.
back and to have this conversation today. So thank you. Welcome back. And I'd love to just start out by asking you how you're doing today.
I'm doing great. It's a little chilly up here, but I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy that the work resonates with your people, because I always feel like with a good podcast, it's like your people are my people, right?
Yeah.
We have the same pain points, we have the same frustrations, and so it's great to be back.
Yes, I love it. And I feel like it's so true that a lot of the people who listen to our podcast are learning about the same things in their life as we are in our life. So we really
Yeah.
use this platform to be able to learn from experts that we really want to learn your wisdom and medicine. And so for
Mm,
both Shayna and I, you know, in our human designs, we talk about a lot, we're 2-4 profiles. And basically what that means is the perfect recipe for a people pleaser, the perfect recipe for caring so much about other
mm,
people and feeling like you really want to make everyone happy and comfortable all the time. So
yeah.
it's been a huge part of our journeys to decondition from that, to let
Mm,
that go. And human design has obviously been the tool that we've really focused on, but we're always looking for other tools and other sources that can help us. And I really feel like the boundary boss has been sort of like a catalyst in our
Mhm.
last few years. So it's interesting. A lot of our clients say the same thing. Like so many of us really struggle with having that balance of honoring yourself, being authentic, and
Mhm.
also making space for other people in a way that doesn't, throw off your own health, well-being, and personal
Mhm.
alignment.
Uh-huh. Which it's kind of interesting. This next book and moving into high functioning codependency, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and amongst anything else you want to talk about, it's like the next natural progression of your evolution. It's a deeper understanding. It's like once we grasp the importance of boundaries and how loving setting boundaries is and how much better your relationships are when you do it. Um, this is the next natural step.
I love it. So perfect timing. And I'd love to just pause here for a second. For those who have not listened to our first episode, we
Yeah,
definitely recommend going back and
yeah,
listening. But for those who are
agreed.
tuning in right now, I'd love to just invite you to share a little bit about who you are, what it is that you share and do and teach.
Sure thing. My name is Terry Cole. I've been a licensed psychotherapist for the past 27 years. Um, I really do believe that, they say you teach what you most need to learn. And I feel like everything that I'm most passionate about teaching other people is the stuff that either caused me the most amount of pain in my own life or was the hardest thing to like unravel and figure out in my own life. So before I was a psychotherapist, I actually was a talent agent for supermodels and celebrities for almost a decade. And again, that you think about entertainment, certainly not a hotbed of mental health, we could say. And the healthier I got, the less I could stay in that business. And I really realized that it was like I had a parallel process going on where my own therapeutic evolution, where I was getting healthier and healthier in my own life. I'd started therapy when I was 19. I stopped drinking when I was 21. So now I was like, ooh, in my mid 20s, like eyes super wide open. I mean, not drinking that's a whole thing unto itself, where you're
Yeah.
really in life. Feeling all the things, especially after numbing feelings for a long time. So I was just so enthralled with my own therapeutic growth and process. I was so like, does everyone know that you can go to therapy and change shit? Like, is this like the best kept secret? Like, does anybody know, right? That you don't have to suffer. I couldn't believe it. And I think that my mindset as I was going through it and changing my relationships and changing myself was that, you think about life, and a lot of times it's sort of like, well, here's the hand I was dealt in life, you know? And I was like, therapy basically says it doesn't fucking matter what hand you were dealt. You could be like, I hate this hand. I don't like this card deck. I don't like this fucking game. I'm changing the entire thing, which is exactly what I did. So I was able to just go, what life do I want? What do I want to do? What I wanted to do was share this experience of freedom and liberation that having good mental health provided for me. And I wanted other people to have that freedom of choice because what happens is, according to Terry Cole, you can only talk it out or act it out, right? So when we don't talk things out like we do in therapy or journaling or with community or friendship or whatever it is, we will act it out in a dysfunctional way because those feelings and those injuries don't disappear simply because they're inconvenient. They're basically like, I need your attention. And so, what I've been walking people through for almost 30 years is how do we intentionally find those things, those parts of ourselves that need our attention and give them our attention. This is how we evolve. So, anyway, that's what I do. I'm super lit up about helping people learn how to lessen their own suffering and elevate their own joy because you deserve to live a life that you're not just like tolerating, a life that you are fucking psyched to have. That is what you deserve. And it is possible because I've taught tens of that millions of people at this point, probably.
Mm. I love every word that you just shared because it's I think it's a really I see myself in your share and I think a lot of people listening to our podcast can too, that feeling of there has to be more than this and
Yes.
I don't want to be trapped within my own life. I want to co-create my own life. I want to have freedom of choice with my thoughts, with my words, with my actions and build something new. And I definitely felt that from a young age as well. Like, okay, this is not it. I kept saying, even when I was really young, this is not my life. This is not my life.
Mhm.
And then it, led to the next question of, okay, well, what is my life?
Mhm.
And, then building that before I had human design was a whole journey in and of itself.
Mhm.
But then human design was really helpful in giving me languaging to some things that I had always felt but never knew were reliable or consistent for me. So it's interesting, when you're now at this place where I think a lot of people are of having more awareness of their thoughts and their how their energy is impacting their circumstances and their day.
Mhm.
Finding healthy outlets for communication, but also for, growth and self-reflection and all of that. Setting healthy boundaries that then there comes in this, at least I'm seeing in my own life, this question of, okay, what is actually helping me in my relationships and what is actually holding me back or not
Mhm.
helping my relationships. Codependency, that word in general, I think a lot of people are just now learning about what that really means
Oh, yeah.
because um it's confusing and it can
Mhm.
easily slip into you can slip into codependency in one conversation with someone and with
Mhm.
one action but then slip out of it with a different person. So I think that it gets messy. People, it's hard for people to really figure out, am I being codependent or am I just being caring, am I just being um you know like a ride or die um
Mhm.
type of energy in the relationships in my life. So it takes this deeper lens, I think, your work into really taking accountability for yourself and what you actually are co-creating um, in your life. But I'm curious to hear your definition of codependency and also all the things because
Yep.
I know now that I'm raising a daughter who's 6 months old yesterday, I am
Mm.
like, is this helping her? Is
Mhm.
this caring? Or am I actually now like creating, you
Yeah,
know,
dependency.
dependency? And she's so young right now, but it is like since she's so brand spanking new, as a parent, you're always thinking like, how am I
Mhm.
shaping this human? Is it in a supportive way or is it actually holding them back? So it's been really fascinating to see it from that lens of like, because when you have a relationship that's well developed, like with your parents or with your best friend or your partner or whatever, it's a little bit harder. There's a lot more entangled in there, a lot more history. But at least observing my daughter and myself, I'm like, oh shit, I actually think that might be
Mhm.
codependency. So, anyways, rant
Okay.
over. What's your take?
Well, I feel like I came to write a book on high functioning codependency, which is a concept that I coined because in my therapy practice, I had women like you, women like me, who are like creating empires, masters of the universe in their own life, highly capable. So if I were to say, oh, hey, what you're describing in that relationship, that's a codependent pattern, they would immediately reject. They'd be like, no, wrong, lady. I'm not dependent on anybody. Everybody's dependent on me. I'm making all the dough. I'm making all the moves. What are you even talking about? So I was like, oh, my clients don't know what codependency is. So let's talk about why. They were being unduly influenced by Melody Beatty, Codependent No More. You have to be enabling an alcoholic to be a codependent, which isn't even what Melody says anymore. But these are the myths and the limiting beliefs that are out there. And we have all this negative association with codependency, like you're the long suffering wife, boo hoo, waiting at home, and he's out spending the rent money, debting, or whatever the hell. None of us identify with that. We're all like, what? So I realized that if I didn't uh, change, because the definition is different, I have created the definition of codependency for the modern woman because that's what it is. So I'm going to give you my definition and then I'll tell you what happened with my clients. It is you being overly invested in the feeling states, the outcomes, the circumstances, the relationships, the finances, the careers of the people in your life to the detriment of your own internal peace. So I make the distinction because listen, we're all empaths and highly sensitive people, and we're women. So we love and we know how to love. And obviously, we want the people in our life to get what they want and to be happy. That is just being a normal, decent person. This is more than that. This is stepping over the line, going from, I really want you to be happy, Shayna, to, I really feel responsible for your happiness. And they are not the same things. So with my therapy clients, obviously I had a conundrum because how can I help them get better if they do not see themselves in the problem? I could not, right? This became the problem. So as soon as I really analyzed, well, how is this different? And what is on our plate as modern women? What is the expectation of us to do it all for all the people, do all the things, look great, don't gain weight, make money, raise the kids, make a casserole or whatever the hell it is that still, there's still the expectation, right, for us. And as soon as I added high functioning to the term codependency, my clients could all and did all raise their hand, not to quote Taylor, but I'm me, I'm the problem, it's me. People were saying with no shame, they were like, you're right. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out because this is what happens when we are doing all the things for all the people and we feel overly responsible for what's going on in other people's lives. Now, if we look at what is the foundation of codependency, any codependency is an overt or covert desire or bid to control other people's outcomes. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? I don't want my friend to be sad. I don't want my partner to lose their job. So I lie about whatever it is when their boss calls or whatever. So maybe we can talk about some of the traits of HFCs, as we call them, high functioning codependents, and see if these traits don't resonate with the people listening and with you guys too. What do you think about that?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds really fascinating. I mean, as you're speaking, like the key words that really stand out to me is being, overly responsible. I feel like in our modern day and age, I feel like so much falls on the woman. And, using Shayna as an example, becoming a new mom for the first time and just seeing like what it's like to juggle being an entrepreneur and a mom and the, head of your household, that you're making all these decisions. Like there's just so much responsibility that falls on us. I feel like it's easy to get in that state of over responsible, and it's easy to then project that onto our relationships. So I feel like
Yes.
right away, I feel triggered. I feel like, yep, okay, I need to listen to the traits because I already know in my life too that those are things that I definitely already resonate just hearing you explain that definition.
Right on. All right. So we feel responsible for fixing other people's problems. So this is one of the top traits. We are kind of hyper independent, meaning we're not that good at asking for help. We don't
Mm-hmm.
even really like it that much because you know what? They're going to do it wrong, first of all, or they're not going to do it in the time frame that we would like. They're going to do it eventually. Forget it. It's just, I just do it myself because it's so much easier. So that the hyper independence is a real thing. It also, of course, adds to the exhaustion. As HFCs, a lot of times we go above and beyond. We do more than we're asked to do sometimes. We also do shit we're not even asked to do. At times we see a need and we're like, oh, I'm going to drop off some soup. My friend is blah, 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 whatever it is. Always ready to jump into damage control mode. We have so many good ideas. We can't stop problem solving. Um, we can't stop auto advice giving. You didn't even ask, but I have ideas for you. I have thoughts. Oh my God, you just got a diagnosis. I have the best gyno. You're gonna love them. I just to text you to their information. Oh yeah, we can't stop. We are literally in auto advice giving mode. Again, a lot of times, even when someone hasn't asked, and trust me, you guys, I wrote this book because I was literally the worst offender on the planet. I didn't even have to fucking know you. I could overhear a conversation on a train and I'd be like, I couldn't help but notice. I mean, literally, I'm telling someone what that they shouldn't be eating gluten or whatever the hell it is I'm saying. Let's see. What other traits? Getting frustrated or angry at times that people don't take our advice because we're so lovingly and willing to give it to them. And then they want to talk about the same crap the next week when we already gave them the answer the week before. They just didn't do it. That's annoying. Feeling resentful, feeling kind of bitter, feeling exhausted, feeling underappreciated, right? Because when you're overgiving and giving from this sort of disordered place, even when people are grateful, truthfully, they cannot be grateful enough because we're giving from a wrong place, from a fearful place, from a place of scarcity, and really from a place of having a desire to control, right? People are like, is this codependent or is this caring? I'm like, or is this an attempt to control something because of how uncomfortable we feel if something is out of control? So, besides the auto advice giving, and besides being overly self sacrificing, because we are literally the girls who are always willing to take one for the team. We're like, dude, it's fine. Like, just do your thing. I'll go next time. Whatever it is, whether it's there's one massage or whether it's the car has a flat tire, it's usually the car. You know what I mean? You're like, it's okay. I'll Uber. You just take the one that works. Like constantly problem solving. We also have this term that I created called auto accommodating. And auto accommodating is when we see a situation, like we're out in the wild and we see a situation, and it can be in our personal relationships too. But I tell a story in the book of I was at my hair salon and they had like a mask on my hair. So I was like laying in the sink, just waiting with a mask on. And now suddenly the line is starting to back up. So every new person with their little robe who's standing in line while I'm laying there like an idiot, not doing anything in a sink, I'm like, I don't need the sink. I'm so stressed out. I'm not relaxed. I'm not meditating or calling my mom or listening to a podcast. I'm like, people, they're waiting. I should tell them I don't need to sit here. So I raise my hand, I have the assistant come over and I'm like, I'll move. I don't need a sink. And she's like, hi, bitch, we do this every Saturday. But anyway, I think we got it covered. Like, she was very nice, but she was kind of funny, like, "You're good, Tara, just relax." And I left there and I actually did a video about it and put it on YouTube and it went viral. People were like losing their shit, being like, "Oh my God, I do this all over the place. Why am I doing that? I'm so tired from doing it." I'm like, this is high functioning codependency, which is
Mm.
totally different than codependent no more, right? This is something completely different. So, an auto accommodating, you might also you know, be doing it just in your life. Maybe you're in a group at work and you have the weak link who's like never going to get that shit done. Where you're just like, I did it last night for you. It's okay. Like I'm just again, why? Because we want to avoid conflict. We really don't want there to be a problem. We would really like there to be peace. We want peace everywhere. The valley, the bedroom, the backyard. It's funny. I was talking to someone else and who was really identified as an HFC, and she's like, "But not in the bedroom. I don't want peace in the bedroom." I was like, "All right, I'll stop saying the bedroom. We'll say somewhere else." She's like, "I don't. I want chaos in the bedroom." I was like, "Okay, great, fine.
Fair
More
enough.
than I wanted to know about you, but thank you." Um, the other thing I wanted to say of these traits is anticipatory planning, where you're going to be with someone who's kind of difficult. So we make a plan, right? It's Christmas time. I have Uncle Bob coming to the house and Uncle Jimmy's coming too, and they don't get along. So I'll make sure they don't sit together and I'll make sure I have the booze that both of them like to drink. And I'll make sure that my one sister is on Bob and my other sister's on Uncle Jim. Like instead of just being normal and having a conversation with these two grown up idiots who can't get along and saying, hey, you two get along or you're not coming to Christmas at my house. You can fist fight later when you're not around me. Instead, we would never have that conversation where we just feel it's almost like puppet mastering, where we're like, it's okay if I just do all the right things, it'll be fine. I had a friend who was dating this fucking idiot. Oh, thank God they broke up. But anyway, someone who we would like travel together, like as couples, you know? And every time I knew that this effing idiot was going to be with us, I thought of everything. I was like, because I'm like, oh, this guy's he's going to find a way to be offended about something. He didn't get the best bedroom. We didn't think of the thing he likes to eat. Like, it was so boring, but I didn't even know at the time what I was doing. Like, but I was doing all this anticipatory planning to like appease and walk on eggshells around this fucking guy that I wasn't even married to. Thank God. And when my friend and he broke up, I was so fucking happy. I was like, oh, thank God. I don't have to do that anymore. But it made me really think about how much time, energy, and bandwidth goes into anticipatory planning. And the last two things I'll say about this, and then we can discuss, is overfunctioning. So, what happens when we overfunction in relationships? I say this like as a joke, but it's not funny, but it's true, that in my 20s, I could take a perfectly functional man and turn him into an underfunctioner in 2 weeks or less. Because I was like, I got it. I got it. I'm good. I planned it. I did it. Like,
Wow.
when you're doing everything, what you're teaching, I mean, a lot of times you can literally inspire someone to become an under functioner. And then sometimes we just attract under functioners because we're so highly capable, right? That people who are like, well, this is amazing. Not, I barely have to do anything to be here. Anyway, that was a lot. I
Wow.
know. So tell me where you
Oh
want to
my
go.
gosh. So many places. You're striking like feel like I'm and I think a lot of people listening like getting hit in the face with some real truths here of, just being accountable and like honest with yourself. I mean, even what you just said right now about um you can take a functioning person and turn them
Mhm,
into an under functioning person because you're so hyper independent. I definitely like I always joke that every time that I go on a trip or something, my husband does all the things that I've been, asking him to do or mm, you know, I
mhm,
do everything and now I'm
Like when
thinking,
he's
"Oh, if
home
I
alone.
leave, when I
mhm.
leave, what's gonna happen? What's he gonna do? How's it gonna be handled?" And literally he does like above and beyond anything that I would even do. And so it's just like, okay, yep, I think like you said, I'm the problem. It's me. And it's really interesting. But I wanted to ask you and get into something you said about the people in our lives that are in our lives that we don't necessarily like, but we have to
Mhm,
spend time around them
mhm,
and setting boundaries in a way that you're not having that anticipatory
mhm,
stress
Planning.
planning, but
mhm,
like the shitty boyfriend, right? That
mhm,
example. I think we can all think of somebody in our life that's married to or dating somebody that just sucks.
mhm.
But then we have to be around them. How?
Okay, well, how I would handle it, I would handle it differently now, right? Because I was a lot younger when I was dealing with that. And of course, at my age now, my tolerance for any of that bullshit is small. Like, it's almost impossible not to be like, "What
Yeah,
is your problem?" Right? Like,
exactly.
to the guy's face.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to protect ourselves by limiting the amount of exposure we have to people who suck and who we don't like and who are not good to the people we love. Why am I placating this guy who is not even good to my friend?
Yeah.
Right? The true truth could be having a real honest conversation with your friend. I have a close friend right now who's married to someone who don't love him, don't love. And I limit the amount of time. And we don't make couple plans because I don't like them. And I don't, and my friend kind of knows I don't torture her about it. But she also is healthy enough to know that she's in a situation that's pretty compromised, and she'll do whatever she wants to do, and I will support her either way. But what I won't do anymore is pretend. that I think he's the greatest when I don't. And it's okay. I go over there, say hello. I'm perfectly cordial, but I do not initiate or try to. If my friend comes to visit, it's not with him, it's with another friend of ours. Like, I'm not trying to spend a bunch of time with this guy. So I think that we can have, and I've had honest conversations with her when she's been open to it or wanted to. And told my loving concern, not auto advice giving, right? I didn't just tell her what I thought. It was when she wanted to know. But I think that we think, or at least I did, when I was spending a bunch of time with this, my friend's idiot boyfriend, that we have to. And the real deal is you don't. And just because it's always been a particular way, if we're going to be cycle breakers and you're going to not continue on in this family driven HFC, high functioning codependent life, because listen, as women, let's talk a little bit about why are we like this? Hello? We're like this for so many good reasons. Not because something's wrong with us, because society says this is a good woman. Betty would give anybody the shirt off her back. You'd love her. Of course, I want to be like, Betty, keep your effing shirt on, but like no discernment. We're just giving our clothes to everybody. But again, when you look at this patriarchal society that we live in, and women, we are to be pleasing, we are to be compliant. And that we're not, obviously, but society, when you think about the the thoughts about women being selfless, the more selfless the better, and you're raised as a little kid, if you don't have anything nice to say, shut up is basically the message that all of us got in childhood, most of us at least. I mean, it's very rare that parents were like, tell me exactly how you feel about something. It was like, be a good girl, get good grades, don't have sex. I mean, those were all the messages for me growing up. It was like, be helpful, be pleasant. Why do you think motherfucker down the street will endlessly be like, smile? Why? Why? I don't need to smile for you or anybody. Like, who the fuck are you? So, again, I'm obviously quite passionate and I'm from New Jersey. You can tell by the way I talk. But we learned this in childhood. So there's a lot of unlearning that we're going to be doing. And when we do, because the cost, right? The cost of these behaviors that we've talked about, burnout, autoimmune disorders, living life light. I just made this term up, right? Because we live so much in our minds. We're anticipating so many things. We're in the future. We're making sure this isn't going to be a problem. And who's picking up that kid? And who's doing this? And do we have the summer camp figured out? And what about the end of the year stuff for the teachers? And what? There's so much, as you were saying before, Dana, right? That there's so much. And you wonder why we talk about invisible labor, right? Which is the little recognized, unrecognized, and that shit is unpaid labor that we do to just keep life running for the people if you have a family. And you may even do it even if you don't have a family. In your friend group, you may be the one who's always planning the getaway, and it's always you booking the Airbnb, and it's always you breaking down the bill when you guys are out to whatever. Like there's all these ways that we overfunction. So when we're always in our heads, at least half the time, you end up experiencing life is about half as juicy, half as impactful, half as interesting as it should be. And then I've seen women who've been doing this for decades in my therapy practice, all kinds of health problems, all kinds of, you're pissed. Like you become a martyr whether you want to or not. Trust me, there is nobody at the age of 30 who's like, can't wait to be a martyr when I'm 80. Like nobody wants to be. It happens over time, right? Through self-sacrificing and feeling like you were not considered enough because you didn't consider yourself enough. Never being fully self-expressed because we're doing so much going along to get along in life, because one of the highest values as an HFC is harmony and peace. We want our people to be happy, right? But what we don't realize is that by jumping in and being so controlling, even if you're doing it in a very stealthy way, that we are robbing other people of their autonomy, right? That we are not accepting people for where they are. When you think about it, according to me, The biggest flex when it comes to love is not fixing someone's problem with your great advice, even if it's great. It's being in the foxhole with them during the dark night of the soul and not treating them like a problem to fix. People as projects sucks, and you know it. If you've ever been on the receiving end of somebody treating you like a project, you're like, seriously, stop it right now. Not helpful. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I need you to witness my pain with compassion. I need you. So, how can we do that? Instead of auto advice giving, the first thing I'm going to say of actions, anybody listening, don't be overwhelmed. Listen, if you feel like, holy shit, I'm an HFC, you probably are. Welcome to the club. We all are. But don't worry, because the things that make you so beautiful and so unique and so loving and so caring, those things will still be you. Like you're just going to get into recovery from being a high functioning codependent. And those good parts of you will be amplified and the dysfunctional parts will be minimized. That's what being in recovery is. We're never getting fixed. There is no cure, right? This is just like drinking. I stopped drinking when I was 21. Does that mean I never want to drink? No. I wouldn't mind having some wine right now. It just means I don't. Right? This is the same thing. You may still have a desire to be like, oh, but I really want to tell her what to do because I have such a good idea. When you start learning to ask expansive questions. So, right now, if this is, you guys listen up, if this is the only thing you took from this podcast, if you take nothing else, take this. Anybody comes to you in any situation, I don't care who they are, a 6-year-old, a 60-year-old, and is telling you about something that is painful. The first thing you're going to say is, okay, tell me what you think you should do. And then you're just going to stop talking. And if they say, I don't know, I want you to tell me, because maybe you're always the one who's telling, you go, okay, listen, I'm going to tell you later, but here's the thing. What you think, even if you don't know, that's okay. Let's brainstorm. Let's spitball it, right? Because it's way more important what you think you should do than what I think you should do, because it's your life. And the truth is, you're the only one who knows. We create this expansion for the people we love to be where they are, even if it sucks and is painful for us, because it's our willingness. Because when you think about it, why do we auto fix? Why do we auto advice give? Because when someone we care about is in pain, it makes us be in pain, and we don't want to be in pain. But people are not projects, and they do not want to be handled in that way. Even if it's a little kid, if you have a 7-year-old who comes home from school and says, I had a terrible day at school, I had a fight with Bobby, you go, okay, tell me what happened. Instead of saying, we don't fight in this family, or whatever the hell you would say if you wanted to already be telling them what to do, tell me what happened. The kid tells you what happened. And then you say to the 7-year-old, all right, what do you think you should do? What do you think is the right thing to do? Maybe the kid says, I think I should go in tomorrow and punch Billy in the face. Now, we're not going to agree that that's the right thing for them to do, right? But what is happening when we ask expansive questions, when we ask the people we love, how can I best support you right now? What would be helpful? Instead of making assumptions about what we think would be helpful, because it would be helpful to us, we're deepening the intimacy in our lives. And we are telling the people in our lives, I respect you. I think your gut instinct is good. And even if you don't know, it's okay. You'll get there. The answers are within you. And where the answers are not, for our friends and our partners and our lovers and whoever, the answers are not within us. And even though you have such a good brain and you have such good ideas, what ends up happening, and I think the last time I was on the show, you guys, and I don't remember, but I feel like we might have talked about my sister, that my sister was in an abusive relationship. Did we talk about that? I can't remember. She was
Mhm.
living in a shack in the woods without running water and no electricity with an abusive guy.
Right.
That story became a pivotal story in this book because what ended up happening is I had to asked my therapist, I didn't know what to do. I had done everything to try to get her out of there. And my therapist was like, P.S., let me ask you something. Why do you think you know what your sister needs to learn and how she needs to learn it in this life? And I was like, oh, shit. And then I said, well, I think we can agree she doesn't need to do it with this idiot who's abusive in the woods with no running water. And she said, Tara, I actually cannot agree because I do not know. I'm not God. And that was the beginning of me realizing. And then she helped me set a boundary with my sister saying, hey, I love you and I cannot talk to you about this guy anymore. If and when you ever want to get out of that hellhole, I will always be your person. And then within 9 months, she called me and said, are you still my person? I said, yes. Got in the car, picked her up, helped her in an appropriate way. But she was leading, right? And the most important part of that story and why I even bring it up is because when we are auto fixing other people, what we're doing inadvertently is centering ourselves as the solution to their problem. And in the end, when I was able to step back, which was horrible, and I was crying my eyes out, and it was so hard to do with my sister. But in the end, she got to be the hero of her own life story instead of her youngest baby sister being the hero, which would create so much shame for her. So we have to understand that by allowing people, right? People have a right to succeed and fail. They have a right to thrive and a right to flail. But when you're in HFC, we don't like people flailing at all, do we? Do you guys like it when people flail around you?
No, not at all. So uncomfortable to watch
Uh-huh.
in yourself.
Yes. But love says, I will learn to tolerate that discomfort so I can stay in the foxhole with you. I think I'm going to cry.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And everything you just said, I just feel like needs to go out into the entire universe on a
Mhm.
giant cosmic megaphone because it's so true and it's so potent. I feel like these are a lot of the lessons that I have been learning in the last few years. Now that I've been putting better boundaries in, kind of gotten to that next level where my boundaries are a little more like my codependency is more sneaky, this high functioning, exactly like you're
Oh,
saying.
yeah. Hmm.
And I mean, one of the things for me is I have I just care about people succeeding so much. And that's literally what I do for a living. We meet with
Hmm.
people and we help them get past their roadblocks and really realize how special they are and create new solutions and strategies and all of that stuff. So, with my friends, when I see someone that I just love them and I believe in their talent so much and I'm watching them waste it or squander it, like I have these moments where I feel like, okay, it's the right time. I feel this reciprocity. I feel invited and I give them this like speech and I just feel like this is going to change their life. And then a week later, they haven't done any of the things we talked about. They're right back to their same pattern. And I'm like, Dana, you have to let go. You waited for the right moment, you gave it your all. And now they have to live their life. Like you have to let go. You have to detach and focus on what you can control, which is your life. And
Yes.
it's so like counterintuitive, I almost want to say,
Yeah.
because of the
Yep.
conditioning that I've had around helping people around and a lot of the qualities you're talking about in a high functioning codependency person. I was thinking in my head, like all of those qualities are great if they're in balance. Like the fact
Correct.
that you are a go-getter, the fact that you are capable, the fact that you're not playing victim in this life, but you are picking yourself up by your bootstraps and making your dreams happen. I felt like, yes, girl, like clap, cheer for that person. But it
Yep.
is so true that any good thing becomes a toxic and unhealthy thing when it's out of balance, when it's overboard. And
Yes.
that feeling of like wanting to create peace externally, but it ruins your peace internally. That's how
Hmm.
you know, okay, there's this like imbalance here. I need to change something. I need to let go of control. And that letting go, I definitely think letting go and being comfortable are two of the hardest things in the human experience in general. So it's like, really, can you be can you learn how to soothe that in yourself, that
Mhm.
feeling of letting go, being comfortable, being uncomfortable? And you're absolutely right that those two things lead to more love. So any uncomfortable pain that we feel, emotional pain that we feel on that
Mhm.
journey, ultimately you're so rewarded with it. Your relationship, that intimacy, that connection gets so much more strong and so much more clear. There's
And
not
what
that
happens for
tension.
you too, though, Dana, what happens for
Yeah.
you and you too, Shayna, is that we are so outwardly focused when we're actively high functioning codependent. There's so much bandwidth out. What ends up happening when we start to, and some of the things that you guys listening, where you're like, oh my God, this is me. But besides asking expansive questions, Terry, what else can I do? Better boundaries for sure. Like exactly giving yourself permission to opt out of things, giving yourself permission to rock the boat and realize that nobody's going to die if you rock the
Yeah.
boat. It's okay to change things, to change the way you're doing things, to not want to be with your friend's stupid boyfriend, and that's okay, limiting your time. We need to surrender to what is. In my situation with my sister, I needed to surrender to the fact that she was not ready to change her situation until she was. And the moment I was able to surrender, it didn't make it easy, but it made me be able to step back. We need to employ the Mel Robbins let them, right? So she's got this concept. It's so funny. I included it in the book. I had no idea she was writing a book about it. I just had seen her talk about it. And I did something similar with my clients. And I thought, oh, this is great. And I'll put her in the book. So I did. Anyway, the let them theory is basically when you want to jump into your friend who, Dana, as you was just saying, right? The broken heart, you want to give a speech, you want to do the thing. And they're wallowing, and you'd rather they not be wallowing. You don't have to listen to it all day long, but you have to let them. Let them live. Let them decide. Then let me, as Mel would say, right? Let me take care of myself. Let me do what I need to do. Another part of your recovery is we have to accept that we're going to disappoint other people. And as ultimate good girls and as people pleasers, this can be real challenging because we don't want to disappoint anyone. Cheryl Richardson has a book literally called "Let Me Disappoint You." So let's get used to the fact that sometimes, in order to not self abandon, we need to disappoint someone else, and that your relationships are not that fragile, and that you are not that fragile. And if your relationships get completely blown up because you set a boundary or because you set a limit, then that shit was completely built on your self abandonment. So
Mhm.
it's not a good relationship anyway.
Wow. A key word that strikes me when you're speaking right now is the word fragile. Like, I think that a lot of us feel like our relationship we care about so much with an old friend we've known forever or with our partner,
Hmm.
whoever it is, we care about that relationship so much. And there's this fear that it is like so fragile. It's like holding broken eggshells in your hand and trying not to crack them. How
Hmm.
do we build that resilience to know, like, okay, if I rock the boat, if I crack an eggshell, it's not gonna, I mean, what you said, I think answers it right in and of itself is that if it does crack, if rocking the boat does make the relationship fall away, then it wasn't ever built on something real anyways. It wasn't built on real love from two whole people. It was built
Right.
on this fractured foundation from the get-go. And honestly, it's probably a good thing if rocking the boat cracks it open for you to just be able to start from ground zero again and to see the truth of what that relationship was.
Yes, but what you make a really good point about the fear, because what happens is it is the child within each of us that fears that even our solid relationships, there's a little part of us that fear that if I say no to my friend, or if I say no to my partner, or if I that we're there's a visceral and physiological fear um, of rejection or abandonment that's built
Yeah.
into us, right, as human beings. Because if you think about back in the cave people days, right, if our whole group was like, bye bye, you're out, you would definitely die. So
Yeah.
I feel like we've got to look at the child within and go, hey, this is an amplified fear. And really, I'm okay. and really it's going to be okay. But the feelings are real. And what ends up happening, and I've heard from thousands of people who've been reading the book and in my community, and actually that's something that if people are interested in this, I have two things for you. I have a free gift, an HFC toolkit, because I know this shit is a lot. So my feeling is I tried to narrow it down a little bit just to give people, if they're like, oh, where do I start? Just go to terricole.com / HFC, and that's there. It's free for you. And I also have a community that if people want to be walked through this process, if there's more that you need, just go to terricole.com / TCM, which is Terri Cole membership, which we'll put those in the show notes for people. But I think the child within stuff is something that's actually valuable to look at, that when you start making these moves, you realize you're going to be okay. And like when you have this super amplified fear, because like a kid's fear is like very life and death type fear, because it was right at 5. We're not like hitching a ride somewhere and getting our own apartment. Like you are the ultimate captive audience as children, whether you had good parents, great parents, or terrible parents, right? There's a part of us as kids that know, like we need to really these we really can't piss off these people too much, because we really can't live without them. And so that I like in the book I talk quite a bit about some child within work that we can do to sort of soothe the kid who's so afraid, because now you're changing behavior from this book. You're going to one step at a time change these ingrained behaviors, and you don't have to do everything overnight. You'll see it literally is just next right action and next right action. And it kind of blows your mind when like you make a move or tell the truth to someone that you've been holding on to, and then like nobody dies or like nobody spontaneously bursts into flame. You're like, wow, I want to do this all the time. Like it really gets better, I promise you.
Right. Yeah, I've experienced that before. Like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to just what you said about not liking someone and then not pretending like you like them, but just coming to them with neutrality and like, okay, I'm going to be cordial, but I'm not going to overdo it. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, it's so nice to see you. Ha ha ha. Laugh at your jokes. Like, I've had to
Happy your
program
jokes.
myself to stop doing that. And the first time that I did it, I remember thinking like, I was like sweating. Like, my inner child was like, my friend's gonna not be friends with me anymore because I'm not gonna be
Mhm.
this way to her friend who I'm not really into. And I just was like, for days, I was building it up. And then when I finally went in there, I challenged myself to just be neutral, be cordial, and not overdo it. And it was like a hallelujah moment. Like the clouds broke through, and I'm like, oh, that was so much better. So it
Ah,
was like healing in and of itself to challenge myself, but like one step at a time, one
right.
situation at a time, and to not put so much pressure on myself because as a overachiever, as a overdoer in general, I feel like I'm like, okay, I learned this new thing. I need to be perfect tomorrow and
Yep.
figure this all out, even though it's
Yeah.
overwhelming. Like this is my next thing I have to take on.
Hmm.
And to think about taking it one step at a time, to think about nurturing your inner child and understanding like it makes sense that you're scared to lose these
Yes.
people. Like biologically, that totally makes sense. That's
Hmm.
valid. There's nothing wrong with you. And now that
Right.
you know that, how do we move forward moment by moment, relationship by relationship,
Hmm.
conversation by conversation, like freeing yourself? And that's what's really interesting. What I'm hearing this theme as you're talking, it's like we, all of us that are overachievers and that are these high functioning codependent people, I feel like we complain so much about how we do everything for everyone and how we're so burnt
Hmm.
out and that we're at our wits end. And it's like, okay, here's the solution. Like, what if you just stop doing all of those things and you
Hmm.
free yourself? You free up so much of your space, so
Hmm.
much of your time, so much of your mental thoughts. So honestly, this, as I'm hearing it, like one of the big words that I'm feeling is like, yeah, this is freedom for yourself
Yes.
and also for other people, because it's true that when you're trying to correct someone or judge them, or you're always on the watch for how you can help them, they don't feel free to live their life either. It's like
Mm-mm.
both people feel, you and the other person feel confined by that.
Yes. I also think there's something that you guys listening, watching can do right now. Before you agree to anything, to do anything for anybody, you're going to ask yourself these two questions. Do I have the bandwidth to do this without becoming resentful? And if the answer is no, you've really got to say no. And the second thing is, do I even effing want to do it? Do I even want to do it? Like as HFCs, we barely consider that because the other person wants us to do it. So I really want you to start thinking about your preferences, your desires, your limits, your deal breakers. What is it like for you? And another thing people can do that can help them figure out probably where they're overfunctioning is just do a resentment inventory where you really just think about the relationships in your life. Could be work, could be important people, could be sometimes we have a lot of resentment for like not even high priority people, right? People just getting on my nerves. And I want you to really look and go, okay, what is the situation? Why do I feel resentful? What is my 50%, right? Meaning, well, so much of the time when I do a resentment inventory, my 50% is that I haven't said anything yet, right? Like I haven't clued them in that I have a problem because there really is always something we can do slowly but surely to be less resentful. But resentment is like this golden GPS to shit that needs your attention because you don't want to walk around like low key aggro all the time. It's like we just can't wait for someone to cut us off in traffic so we can go off. You know what I mean? Like you've got all this accumulated anger that starts building up, which we don't want, and it's bad for our health too. You know?
Like so many of the and so many of the things that you're sharing are like, okay, yes, I need to do all of this, but then I'm like, okay, not hyperdo it and that one
Hmm.
step at a time. I think that a challenging place is that feeling of do I want to do this or is this just my autopilot? Like
Yeah.
that second question of like, do I even want to do this? I think for a lot of people, it's coming, it's more, they're more focused on like, this is how I show love. This is how I care for this person. Um, this is how my family functions or how I support the people in my life. And
Hmm.
it's that question of like, do I even want to do that? I think it's like, well, yeah, that's why I do it for a lot of people. But if they really dig deeper and they break each step down, it's like, well, actually, I don't really want to be doing this thing. It's
Hmm.
just, I never even asked that question. So I think that's a really fine line for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that it probably changes day by day and
Hmm.
thing by thing and person by person. Um, but yeah, for me personally, that hyper independent side, the fine line between is this helping me like achieve my life and this is my auto way of operating?
Hmm.
Um, or is this something that is disturbing my inner peace, like you said?
Right.
Um, that's gonna be a big challenge for for
Yes.
me personally, which I think probably a lot of people, right? That's probably a huge challenge to like not be
Yes, but
so controlling.
I think that what you're going to find, Shayna, is that when you start really looking at your behavior, right, we're becoming the observers, compassionate and curious observers of our own behavior. Really start looking like, what is my motivation? There's going to be some obvious things that you're like, I literally don't even care that much about this person. Why am I saying I'm going to do this thing that's super inconvenient for me? So there's going to be some that is really obvious. I think the closer ones, right, family stuff, if you're in a marriage, listen, from now until the end of time, as women, as people, we are going to sometimes do stuff we don't want to do because that's called being a citizen on planet Earth, right? This is, we're going to go see classical music if you don't like it. If your husband really does, in my case, you're going to see a lot of classical music in your lifetime and you're going to live because if it makes him happy, right? There are things that we do that they're not bad for me, but it's about prioritizing. Like, am I making a concession for someone who's in the VIP section of my life who matters to me, right? I may not like classical music. In fact, I don't, but I really, really like my husband. And I really, really want him to be happy and he loves it. So we go and then we go to dinner and I find a way to make it not suck as much as it actually sucks. Like, fine, like you just get over it. But I think that a lot of times we're doing those concessions for people who we don't owe it to, who they're not in the VIP section of our lives. And we feel, for me, I was like an equal opportunity, high functioning codependent where I barely prioritize. It could be someone I barely know and asking me to do something, and I would be seriously considering like going way out of my way to do it, or I would just do it. So I think that what Shane is saying, she brings up a great point. But as we prioritize the the really important people to sort of the less priority people, it's easier. And I always love to tell my clients, why don't we start with the lower priority people? Because it's
Mm,
easier to start with them. Exactly what you did, Dana, right? Where you,
yeah.
the friend of a friend that you're not super in love with, I don't need to like fall over myself acting like I love them when I don't. It's
Mhm.
not true, and I don't care, and I'm exhausted, and I don't want to give all that energy to that. That's a perfect example of like course correcting and being more authentic in the moment without being rude or doing anything wrong.
Right. And that smaller objective felt big to me in the moment because it was like kind of my first time doing it. But once I did it, I proved to myself how much it worked, how much better I felt, how
Yeah.
everything flowed more after that. And that proof for me through like experimenting gave me more confidence to try it with bigger and bigger issues and with bigger and bigger people in my life, more
Mhm.
important people in my life. So I think that that's an amazing way to start is like, okay, I also love writing the list of like, who are people that you have resentment towards and really
Mhm.
being honest about that because I journal a lot. And that is something I've never thought to do ever
Yeah.
because I think there's maybe some shame for me if I have resentment in some of
Oh,
my
yeah.
relationships
Yep.
and I'd rather journal about I don't know, I'm like more comfortable calling myself out on like personal things in my own
Of
life and
course.
my actions and my behaviors, but to think
Sure.
about, okay, what are the relationships where I am harboring this resentment that I haven't even consciously saw? It's just like, it's a very awakening to hear that because it's showing me an area where I haven't been practicing awareness. And I feel like it could be very, very helpful to do that. So I'm really excited I feel like we talked about so many practical tools just even in this conversation. I'm
Mhm.
excited for everyone listening. We'll definitely put the link in the show notes for the free tool doing that inner child work. And I'd love to just ask you, where else can we stay connected with you? Where can we continue to learn from you? And how can we get your book?
All right. Well, there'll be a link in the free gift, terricole.com/HFC. There'll be a link to buy the book there because I have a lot of bonuses still that go along with the book. I have my community, as I said before, terrycole.com/TCM. And we meet weekly in my community. That's like my favorite thing to do. And it's pretty much, besides my mastermind, it's the only way to work with me. And then I have a mastermind that starts March 1st. So I don't know when this is going live, but that's when it starts. Probably 10 to 12 women. And I love that so very much. It's probably my most favorite thing is just getting snuggly with a dozen women for a year. It feels great. And Instagram is probably the place I hang out the most. I also have a podcast I've had since 2015 called The Terry Cole Show. And anything you want to find out about me, you can go to terrycole.com at my website.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. It was such a pleasure to learn from you. I feel like last time after we recorded with you, Shane and I were like, okay, time to dive in and get to work together. And we digested what we talked about for last time for months, for years. So I feel like this is going to be the same. And I'm really grateful because it does feel like that next level, like we've refined our journey so much in this
Mhm.
realm. And it feels like this is the next level that feels like it's going to be the most supportive and the biggest game changer. So I really want to thank you for your work. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. I'm really excited for our audience to be able to continue this conversation together and to talk about where are the places that we've resonated with this conversation today. So thank you so much for being here, Terri.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
As always, you know where you can find us at daylunalife.com or on Instagram at dayluna. And if you're wanting to dive deeper into human design and really apply it to your life month by month and daily, you can join us in your human design besties, where we get to meet every month and also integrate and work on our energetic housekeeping together as a community. You also can find our book, Your Human Design, anywhere books are sold. So we are sending so much love, one step at a time energy your way. And we hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in with us today. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to follow along and learn more about human design.